Hi, this is Trent Clark, and welcome to Winners Find a Way to Win in Fitness and Business. I'm excited to be with you here today, and we're going to cover a lot of ground today. So let's just jump right in to some of the things we're going to talk about. Today, we're sponsored by Journeys, and we have a software called Sisu powered by Journeys that we're super excited to talk about. But today, here's our agenda. We're going to talk about my story and a little bit of my background, as well as a couple key points: criticism versus coaching, interested versus committed. Where do I lie? Two pains in life, and we're going to talk deep about those things. Leading and lagging indicators as we look at how we're developing our teams, reviewing the tapes, and how we pivot. And then, of course, finally, the winning formula, right, of how we go out and win. So with that, I will say, let's talk a little bit about my story. So I am a guy who owns 3 different companies, and I am a member of the Entrepreneur Organization. But most people know me because I spent over 12 years in professional baseball as a strength and conditioning coach. I coached with the Detroit Tigers, the Cleveland Indians, and the Los Angeles Angels, getting a chance to be a part of 3 World Series with those organizations, and it was a fabulous experience. I have a picture here you'll see on the screen of opening day with Jim Thome and I back in the days with Cleveland. And so as a kid coming up, I really wanted to be a pro baseball player. That was my end goal. And I'll ask you, have you ever been told you're not enough? Because I heard that a lot. And I'm here to tell you that you have what it takes. When I was a kid, I was told, you're not fast enough. You're not big enough. You're not strong enough. And in my mind, all I ever heard was, you're not enough, Trent. And I started thinking about that more and more. And I was fighting against that, thinking, hey, this is something I think I can do. Yet adults who are in the world are telling me maybe not so much. So a very interesting event happened for me when I was 15 years old, and I got the chance after a really great week of baseball. I got to sit down at a showcase camp with a former major leaguer, and he had seen me for the week, and he asked me what I wanted to do, and I said, well, sir, I want to do what you did. I want to play in the major leagues. And he said, you have what it takes. You can do that. And I was just blown away. I was like, are you sure? Because everybody's telling me no. And he taught me a very valuable lesson that day. First of all, he taught me to believe in myself. You have what it takes. And the second thing he taught me was, hey, Trent, any of those people that are telling you no, did they play in the major leagues? And I said, well, no. And he said, I'd be really cautious about where you choose to get your advice from and who you choose as an advisor. And I thought, boy, what a great lesson that was. And I've carried that throughout my life. But as we go forward, you have what it takes. And I want you to understand that at every step of the way. Let's talk about criticism versus coaching, because there's a lot of things that happen as we go out in our fitness world and in the business world. There's a lot of it. And so I love the quote by Michael Hyatt that says, criticism is like medicine. It's poison if administered in the incorrect dose. So I thought that was such a valuable lesson as we're taught to encourage 5 encouragements to 1 criticism. And as I think about, hey, are you enough? Am I thinking, hey, am I enough? I want to be self-encouraging too. And I'm reminded of George Adams, who his famous quote was, encouragement is oxygen for the soul. And so we want to encourage others, and we want to be engaged and look for that encouragement, and we certainly want to be encouraging ourselves. Are you coachable? That's a big question as we start talking about, hey, am I ready for criticism? Am I ready to lean in? And if I've got good advisors around me that I trust, I'm really happy to lean in and get that information. As a former athlete, you had to learn to adapt well and fast. And so you chose, hey, who are those people giving me that good advice? And that was so critical for that timeline. And if we couldn't take that. As a coach myself, I heard a lot of yeah, but coach, I've got this. Yeah, but I was going to do it this way, but there was this. Yeah, that sounds really good, but I'm going to go this way. And there was a lot of disagreement or excuse. And all of a sudden, as coaches, we started thinking, hey, is this person coachable? Because we want to be known like, hey, I'm ready to listen and I'm ready to adapt to the needs. Lean into the right criticism. A lot of folks get that criticism and it hurts a little bit, right? And so when that criticism comes, it's a very mature response to lean in and say, hey, tell me more. Show me what you're talking about. And instead of a typical response of criticism is defensiveness, right? Where I may take a step back, start making excuse, blame others, maybe attack my critic and attack them personally, which is a common way when criticism happens, right? Well, hey, Trent, you're not that good at that either, so I don't know why you're telling me to do it. And it's very easy to attack the critic. So we have to be able to lean in, be ready for that, take that advice and learn from it. As we drive forward, we talk about interested versus committed. And fitness is so great in this. And we're looking for committed team members. That's what I'm looking for on my teams. And I often like to tell people I'm very interested in losing 15 pounds. And so how will I do that? How would I lose that 15 pounds? So I would talk about all the foods I'm going to eat and build out a structure and schedule for my diet and when I'll do my eating. And here's my 6 workouts for the week and what time I will do those. And I'll start reading some magazines and articles about ways, what diet I might choose. Do I want to do keto, paleo? What diet am I thinking might work for me? Boy, I am seriously interested in losing these 15 pounds. All that interest is not going to help me lose those 15 pounds. I'm going to have to get committed. And you'll know I'm committed because you'll see me out at 6 a.m. doing my workouts. You'll see me at the grocery store picking out the better foods. You'll see me, and the commitment is me doing. I like to say to people, hey, are you interested? Talking about it, or are you committed? Doing it? And we want folks on our teams to be committed in all things, right? Because when all of us get committed to something, boy, really great things happen. So when we talk about your wellness and your fitness, are you interested or are you committed? And when we talk about your work and the way you're attacking your business and attacking your job and attacking what you have to do on that front, are you interested or are you committed? Because those around you, they know. They know which one of you are. Are you talking about it or are you doing it? There are 2 pains in life, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. And you choose. Because you're going to have both. You are definitely going to have pain. I don't know anyone who gets out of that, who gets to just miss out on, I just like the good stuff. No pain for me. Thank you very much. I don't know anyone who's been able to actually duck that in their lifetimes. So we have these pains. And so pain of discipline is acute. It's very short term. And all of us have gone through these tough workouts. We're talking about fitness, pushing ourselves to another level, sometimes pushing ourselves to where we're physically ill. I can remember a number of times in sports where I pushed myself to be training where we became physically ill. Myself, my teammates, we pushed hard, hill running and sand running and different things that we did along the way. And I look back at those times and man, not pleasant, painful, but very acute. The next day, I felt great about my body and how hard I worked. I was sore, but I wasn't broken. And the camaraderie that we built together, going through the pain together of that discipline to build our team and get better was a huge value. Now, I also think about my life. I am 50 years old, so I will say I have that pain of regret in my life. And so I have to consider like, wow, there's a couple things I wish I could go back in time and change a decision. You know, given that situation again, I think I might have done something differently. And I would have liked to said, boy, given that choice again, I would have rather have gone left when I went right. And so there's some decisions we make. And the thing about the pain of regret is typically around the things we don't do. We don't choose to do. We analysis paralysis, and we just choose to stop and not do anything. And we wish that we'd stepped forward and done the hard things. And that regret is chronic. It stays with us for a number of years. In fact, I can think of regrets, a regret when I was 13-year-old. I can pull that out of the sky right now, and I can feel that pain. I mean, it's 37 years later, and yet that pain is still chronic. When I think of that pain of the workout, that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt me at all. I know what I did was doing hard work, but it helped me. I feel no regret, no pain over that sand running, over that hill running, over that work, over those tough decisions, over those decisions of integrity that built character, where we choose to do the right thing, even if it costs us a job, even if it costs us a relationship. There's just no wrong way to do the right thing. So here we go into this, how do I choose that? Because in sports, there is a ton of athletes. There are a ton of people that went home, and I saw this firsthand, and they live in that pain of regret. I wish when I had my chance to be a baseball star and I got signed, I really would have been committed, because I sure was interested in being a major leaguer. But when I got to the minor leagues after being signed, I didn't show that commitment. I didn't show everybody else that I was truly committed. And they regret that decision now. And there are bar stools across America with someone sitting on the end. And that regret is so strong that they'll medicate every night because they have that pain of regret, and they're just trying to alleviate it. It's just not easy. So let's talk about personal pain. We have that. We make decisions. We have them in our life. I talked about one of mine, and you can't go back and often change them, right? So we have to move through that. We have to take that learning and take that lesson. Hey, I like to say we either win or we learn. And when you have those moments of regret and personal pain, like win or learn. If you learned from that regret, great. You're going to be able to move forward and probably never experience that kind of regret again, because you'll know better and you'll learn from that. And we're going to win. And that personal pain is strong, but go after that personal pain of discipline. Lean into the fact that a little pain is acute. That discipline is not going to last long. It's hard pain now. We get up, we go to the gym, 4 o'clock this afternoon. We feel great that we did that. Very hard to shut off that alarm at 4:45, right? Let's talk about business pain. We've got opportunities. We got ways to position ourselves, the attitudes at work. How do we carry ourselves? How do we do our job to the best of our ability? We have to lean into that discipline every day to do those impactful items. I like to call it win the day. Win the day. Every day I've got these items, and I'm going to win the day, because I know if I get the 3 most impactful items done, I win the day. And businesses choose that. They do their homework on their employees and who they're going to hire. They want to join the right team members. They want to get committed, and they want people that are committed. So they're committed to hiring people that are committed, because that serves, and that how to make the team get stronger. And those pains of when we don't, and when we're lazy about that, well, you know what, we don't have time to get all that work done, we're busy and we just can't do it, so just let's hire the next person. And they may cause challenges. They're not committed to what everybody else is committed. They're not aligned with the direction that we're going. And so we don't do our homework. And then all of a sudden we have regret. We have to go through firings, and it's painful. And no one wants to have personal conflict. And it's a challenge. So we have to understand that acute pain of discipline and that chronic pain of regret, both personally and in our businesses. So let's talk about, when we talk about our exercise program and our businesses and how we plan for that, right? There's lagging and leading measures. So a lag measure, of course, is I just weighed in and I can do nothing about that weight. That is a lag measure. This is what I weigh this morning. 169 pounds. And next week, if next Friday or next Wednesday, I want to weigh 167. Ooh, now I've got all sorts of lead measures that can help me get and reach that goal. How many times I exercise, how many calories I put in my body every day. I can win the day for the next 7 days, and I can weigh in at 167. So I'm very focused on how those goals work. And I set those measures, and those KPIs are how many calories a day, what's the workout, how long do I need to work out? All those factors go into it. I measure those goals each and every day. We've got this great fitness equipment we're going to talk about, and the data, we get lots of it. Then what are you doing about it? I love the saying, hey, plan the work and work the plan, right? We strategize a plan on how it's going to work, and we lay it out, and then we work the plan. We actually execute and do it. So it's one thing to strategize. The toughest execution, that's really where the big discipline comes in, as we talk about and go back against our KPIs. And how do we do that? Once we execute, we review the tapes. We're so good about that in sports, is we go to a game and we do really well and everybody's excited and we say, boy, let's look at the tapes. I'd love to go back and watch that game again. We were so great. But let me tell you, the tapes that we watch most are the tapes where we lost 8-1 and went, what happened? What did we do wrong? Oh my gosh, let's look at the tapes. What are all the things that we're messing up? What do we need to change? What do we need to adapt? Most people, they learn more from those opportunities of loss, right? So that's why we win or we learn. We have to go back and review the tapes, and then take that information, adapt, pivot, and move forward. We definitely want to celebrate that, right? We want people around us that can advise and celebrate with us. Next, when we talk about reviewing those tapes, let's talk about the personal way we review those tapes. In exercise, it's great. We have the Fitbit, we have the watches, we have the data. I have my watch on, right? Like I have my watch on all the time. How well did I sleep? How many hours of REM am I getting? All this data. It's so great that we have all of it, but we have to use it, right? Now, what's great about what you're doing is if you're having a program where you're all online together, that's a great way to hyperlearn, right? We get engaged together. We use that in Sisu powered by Journeys because we have team engagement on there. And there's hyperlearning as everybody gets tips together and we share those tips in and we learn together. It's such a faster way to go. It directs us. It takes our focus from out here to very tight. And that keeps us very narrow and pointed, helps us get to our point of end goal faster. We also get this data with immediate feedback. Hey, how much fat did I burn? How many carbs did I burn? You know, what is the burning? My calorie intake, how many of those things am I getting? So that's really important. The one thing about reviewing tapes is that the video doesn't lie, right? A lot of people will say, hey, I went out and I rode the bike so hard, I really worked hard, and look how well this went for me. And oh, that's great. And then we look at the watch data that says, wow, you only burned 250 calories. What was the intensity on that walk? Well, I mean, we walked through the park, we stopped a little bit, you know, we stopped at the bridge and we watched the ducks at the pond and we kind of moseyed and like, wow, this isn't the most intense workout of all time, right? So we all of a sudden when we review the tapes don't lie. I often would have athletes go, oh, you know, hey coach, I was in perfect position, I was prepared, I was ready to go. Oh, okay, Jim, let's go back to the tapes and let's look at that play. Here we are, you know, and maybe we have a miscommunication on where that positioning is. But clearly, by the coach's standard, Jim's out of position by 25, 30 feet. And now all of a sudden we're like, wait a minute, this is the play we called a shift, and you didn't shift into the right position. So the tapes don't lie on telling us, hey, are we doing it properly? Is it correct? So I love to review the tapes. In businesses I notice don't do this very well, right? They don't get after reviewing the tapes. I walked into a company a few years ago and they had recently delivered 7 proposals in the last 8 weeks on new business, of which they had not landed one of those proposals. And I asked them, I said, man, what did you learn? Show me the breakdown of each proposal and what you learned from the client after you were not awarded that agreement. Oh, well, we didn't call the client and we didn't go back and change anything. We kind of just changed the name on each proposal and submitted. And what they did was they didn't learn from what was working and what didn't work. They didn't go back to review the tapes to adapt and adjust and pivot to get that right. And so as we look at that and we say, hey, we've got to coach our team up. We got to look at those tapes and review. Now it's time to coach. And that data is a great source of coaching. It's great feedback. We use it and we can show people the data and raw data that says, hey, this is how what's working. This is maybe where we want to adjust. So how quickly can I review that information? The more likely and on point that data is, it's going to be fast. How can I learn from it? Well, there's lots of ways to learn from it. You know, we look at our goals, our KPIs, and our measures. Are those something we're tracking? So we learn from it. Are you adaptable? I mean, that's a huge one. Like when I look at LeBron James, who's this famous basketball player and comes out of high school and becomes this great athlete. Now he's in business. He owns half the Blaze Pizzas in all of Chicago, and he's in all sorts of things. He's adapting his learnings, and he's creating this environment of how can he do that well and adapt to different situations. So he surrounds himself with other good coaches and he looks at the data, he breaks it down. The Rock, who went from college football to pro wrestling to acting, he gets good coaches around him. He gets the data, he gets the information, he reviews the video, he looks at it. How can I adapt? I'll get better. And he just continues to progress. Hyper learn with each other. Like as we learn together, we learn faster. And I don't need to make the same mistakes to learn from Judy. If Judy makes an error and she says, oh, this is what I learned, I'm like, oh, that's really good, Judy. We can all learn from that because we could easily step that way. And Judy's already been through the exercise and shown us, hey, if I'd have done X, Y, and Z, I'd have never felt that pain. I'd have avoided that. So good. We look for tips, questions, things. We question the status quo. How could we do things differently? We ask impactful questions of each other. When we ask those impactful questions, we get deeper in the knowledge of sharing. We get deeper in the knowledge of knowing. And when we're armed with information, we make better decisions. I don't want to make decisions on 40% of the information because they're not good decisions typically. If I have 90% of the information, I'm really likely to make a good decision. So we have to learn that. Learn from people that can teach high quality tips and advice. Again, we kind of talked about that in the beginning. Choose who those advisors are. Who gains that great data? Who gets that information? Is your team coachable? As we talk about that, do I have the right attitude? And the lifelong learner, so important. I like what we call cards: coachability, accountability, responsibility, and dependability. When I have cards around me, boy, I've got a hand that I'll play any card game with, right? If I've got 8 folks on my team and they're all cards, they're aces. They're all coachable. They all accountable to each other and themselves. They all take responsibility. They are highly dependable. These are aces. And hey, if I've got 8 aces, guess what? I don't lose any games, right? Like I'm always going to win. So I want to surround that. Know the roles and do the job. That's so important in what we bring from Sisu with Journeys. When we have that software, it really focuses in on those impactful items and knowing, hey, these are my responsibilities and how I'm doing my job today. And the impactful items right where I'm sitting, well, I will make a difference in this organization. I will make a difference for my sub team, my division, and then for the whole company as a whole. So we look at that and how we can do that. How do you pivot? Listen, when we've got that data, when we've got that information, it's much easier to take that data and say, okay, what are a couple of the items we can do to make a change and make it different? So we pivot and we don't look back to say, hey, I regret any of those decisions. We simply pivot to moving forward. When we talk about the pivot, I always like to think about the windshield and the rear view mirror. Now everyone's got backup cameras now, but I know that, like, I don't want to be driving down the highway at 70 miles an hour backwards, navigating through a rear view mirror. I mean, that would be crazy. And if everyone was doing it, we'd have more accidents and crazy things on the road. Everyone drives forward. We look through the windshield. When I teach my kids to drive, you look in that rearview mirror and back up as little as possible. If you could back up 2 feet and start moving forward, let's do it. We may have to look in that rearview mirror to review those tapes, and we take a quick glance, but then we go forward with a new plan. And we plan that work, and then we work the plan. And here's your winning formula to finish up. Winning formula: be a lifelong learner. Like, you never stop learning, never stop adapting, keep getting better. Take those little tweaks, little differences every day make such a difference. I was recently reading about how we planned to launch into space and to get the our landing on the moon. And there was a value that if you were off 2 degrees on that coordinate, that the landing would actually miss the moon by 10,000 miles on 2 degrees. 10,000 miles they would miss the moon. And I thought, like, wow, the smallest separation of degrees. So if we tweak those little degrees every time we click in getting more focused and more tight. So be a lifelong learner. Learn to listen well. Be a great listener, learning to understand. Leaders are listeners. So and plus, here's the real value of listeners. Great listeners ask impactful questions. Ooh, that's really interesting, Jane. Tell me more about that. And they start getting information. They gather the deep details that help them gather the great information so they can make great decisions for them and their teams. Have the self-discipline. So critical. It's absolutely that pain. Choose that pain of discipline every time for yourself. The greatest leaders I've ever worked with are absolutely excellent at self-discipline. They separate themselves, and they are often ordinary men and women, but have extraordinary self-discipline. Be humble and lead with clarity. I mean, it's so important. The humility, we've all had probably a slice of humble pie in our lives, and it's good for us, right, to stay humble. It's such a path of danger for that humility to arrogance, and it can easily cross as we get confidence to arrogance. And stay humble. I like to say that we judge ourselves on our intentions and others by their actions. So we know that, hey, I've got my intention, but we only see the actions of others. Other people are judging my actions, not my intentions. And I have to recognize that. So that's how I get that criticism. I get that lean in and I learn. Lastly, that winning formula belongs to 3 things. 3 things every day. In Sisu for Journeys, we focus on those 3 things to do your job and have the max impact. And we have those inputted in that data every day for every single person. So if our team, our whole team, whether it's 20, whether it's 6, whether it's 6,000, if every single person is doing the 3 most impactful items that they can have in their seat to do their job, you are going to have a great organization and a great team around you. I am Trent Clark, and I thank you for spending time with me today, talking a little bit about how we create that winning formula. And winners find a way. I will leave you with the last of the thing of what losers possibly do. If you get yourself around these, you got to run the other way. Losers will do one of 4 things. They will make excuse, they will blame, they will quit, or they will ignore the data. Winners, when shown data that they're losing, find a way to win. Be that winner today. Believe in yourself. If you're not sure, I want you every day in the mirror to take a look and say, I've got what it takes. And you do it every single morning till you believe it. I'm Trent Clark, and I thank you for this time together, and I wish you well in all your endeavors. And I thank Journeys for sponsoring this event, and I look forward to seeing you soon.